What's up? I'm Drew Paul Bell, and today I want to talk about some lessons that I learned in my final year of architecture school from designing t-shirts for the fraternity that I'm in. So I was a member of Alpha Rho Chi, which is a professional fraternity that's centered around architecture and the allied arts. And we were establishing our colony to become a chapter, which is a long story, but anyway, I was the graphic design chair of this organization. And so in this, I was responsible for doing like banners and flyers and t-shirts. So in doing the t-shirts, it was actually a really interesting experience. I had the opportunity to do a lot of it on my own as the graphic designer, along with feedback from my client being the president of the organization. Having a client was what the huge learning experience was all about. I learned a whole lot from that. So the way it all started was we had been talking about doing t-shirts for a while, so I kind of had some ideas in the back of my mind. It came time where we said, okay, well, it's time, like we got to get our t-shirts coming out, because we were just establishing our organization. We wanted something that was going to be our first t-shirt, and it was going to be something that was going to really help identify all of us together as a group. We wanted to make sure that we played in on the idea of the architecture part of the fraternity, because we're not just like some regular fraternity that's social. We do have a bias towards architecture and the allied arts, so we wanted something that spoke to that identity that we had. We also wanted something that was very professional and not kind of kitsch and funny, right? Because most of my ideas that I had already were kind of kitsch and silly. So having a client to talk to, I was able to get that kind of guidance. And that kind of guidance was actually not restrictive at all. It really helped me to hone in on what the design should be, how it needed to look, the kind of feel it should have. I was able to identify that it should be kind of like classy and sophisticated, but at the same time like sharp and attractive. And I was able to clarify that and get some feedback, right? Because in studio, a lot of times what happens is you don't have an actual client. You're really just designing for yourself. And you might pretend to have a client, like you say your client is like the video production company or whatever, but you don't actually have someone real to talk to with actual opinions. It's all kind of up in your head and you're just deciding, or your teacher's kind of guiding you along, but they play a weird position. It's not quite client, but it's also kind of guidance, but you're kind of supposed to do it on your own. So you don't really get like hard feedback from them that's consistent like you would from a client. After he came and talked to me about kind of my midway, almost finished design, then I had talked to him about like the final design. So I tweaked up the last little things that we talked about. Then I came to him like the next day or the day after and showed him again and said, okay man, like here it is, we're done. On the front, you wanted like either like this one or this other one. I think this one's best. He said, okay, yeah, sure, let's do that. But then he started worrying about other fraternities. He looked at the other chapters' t-shirts and Googling them online, and all of a sudden he started to get cold feet. So here I had worked on this design for about a week, spent a large amount of time on it, more than I probably should have considering I had classes to work on. But I had done this thing and I was really happy with it. I was completely satisfied. I thought it could have been put on a t-shirt a few days before, but with his help we were able to get it to be even better. And now that it was even better, he was starting to worry about it and think, no, maybe we should just start over and do something new. He was literally questioning the entire concept before I was about to turn in the final project to go to the printers. And I think this is something that happens to a lot of people. I've talked about this before in videos where you don't need more time, you need to decide. Right? Seth Godin calls this the lizard brain. Stephen Pressfield calls this the resistance. And it's the idea that as soon as it becomes time for you to present your work and stand behind it, whether that means printing it, building it, shipping it, whatever it takes, right around that time where you have to commit to the thing, the part of your brain that's worried about being attacked or what other people are going to think, it starts freaking out. It starts to really worry about how it's going to be perceived and if you need to change something. But in that last moment is the worst time to change something because you don't have time. And if you change something like that, then you're not going to be able to work it out by the deadline, or your deadline's going to get pushed back, and then It's going to get pushed back the next time you come up on the deadline, and then the next time you come up on the deadline. So I found myself having spent a lot of time on this t-shirt, committed to getting this one printed, and I basically took it upon myself in that moment to recognize that that's what was happening to him, and take it upon myself to convince him to accept the design that he already knew he liked. Right? Because we had talked about it a day before. He had committed. He knew he liked it. He knew he did. It was only that he started getting cold feet when he looked at other people's stuff. And it was actually completely irrational. He was looking at other shirts that he thought might be better than ours, and like I literally looked at it as I do, like no offense to those other shirts, but like I think this one's the best. I think it's not exactly the same, but like you're never gonna do it. You don't want to do something that's exactly the same. And like we talked about this the other day. We weren't sure about whether we wanted to have this way or that way, but we decided on this, and man, look, I'm telling you, dude, like this is gonna be a great design. And if you really want to change it, I can do that, I guess. But let me tell you that from my opinion as a graphic design chair, I think the shirt is done and I think it's ready to be printed. And he came around on it. But I felt like I was making him comfortable with a decision he had already made. Now, but think about that though. Like, that's not something that they teach you in school. It's easy enough to get to the point where you're pretty much done and you're ready for it to go to the printers, but then the client might pull back and say, nah, I don't know, let's change something. And when you're right there, you have the decision. You can say, well, it's not my responsibility, I just have to make changes. Or you could say, look, I'm the designer. I've decided, I've been trained to know what's attractive and what's not attractive. As the designer, I have an opinion here. And this is what it is. Of course, you have to consider your client's opinions to an extent, but ultimately, like, if you're a designer, you have to be able to stand behind your designs. That's what you do. In the same way, you're not going to go into their business and tell them how to run their business. They can't really come into yours and tell you how to be a better designer if that's what you do. From what I understand, Tom Main talked about this in a recent convention. Bob Borson talked about it on his blog, lifeofanarchitect.com. So consider that. Also consider the fact that as a designer, as an architect, a lot of times it's going to be your responsibility to get your designs to the finish line. That's just the way it is. And some people might complain and think that that's not really what they signed up for, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you're going to get your designs out the door, then you have to be responsible for getting them out the door. Even if your clients start to get cold feet at the end. Because ultimately they'll be happy that they did it, and let me tell you, he was. So, let me show you the t-shirt. Actually, I'm wearing it right now for the video. One more lesson though is that when it was printed, it actually got printed a little bit too big. They scaled everything up. I actually meticulously printed out 8.5 by 11s of this design to make sure that it was sized right for t-shirts. I compared it to other t-shirts I had. I made sure that it looked okay. And then when I got them back, they were all it was all a little bit bigger. It all got scaled up. And I actually wasn't the one that went and got it printed out, and I wasn't there, so I couldn't approve it. I didn't find it out until after we'd already passed out half the t-shirts. But another lesson, a bonus lesson to be learned, is make sure that whatever it is that you have, make sure it gets done right. Right, in your IDP hours, you're going to put that under CA, Construction Administration, making sure that the way it was intended to be is the way it's actually getting done. So again, just adding on to the idea of following through on the design, getting your design to the finish line, and making it happen. So anyway, I hope this helps, and I'll talk to you next time.